Life in 1800s Manhattan was nothing but a struggle for the labouring working classes, and absolutely wretched for the poor and those toiling to pay the bills on a wage that provided only subsistence. So how did New Yorkers manage? How did they stretch the meagre earnings of home industries, low-paid piecework, such as sewing, into a household budget that would feed and house themselves and a family? That is the question that Helen Campbell, a journalist working for the New York Tribune in the 1880s, sought to answer, skeptical of politicians and economists, who, according to Campbell, had for decades talked up the incomes of the lower classes as being enough to provide, for most, a comfortable living. She went amongst the people themselves to hear their stories of desperate poverty and to learn how they worked and what they ate. You will hear her interviews with women who faced particular hardship as sole earners, and discover the brutal choices they faced in deciding whether they could afford the simplest of foods, let alone fuel, and find out how a wretched existence on Manhattan's West Side resulted in a meagre diet comprising some of the most humble and rudimentary foodstuffs you might imagine. Before we move on, I would really appreciate it if you could give this video a like and share it with friends and family. If you're interested in history like this, please consider clicking the subscribe button to see more, and take a look at the channel page to discover a huge number of real and fascinating stories of everyday life in the past. If you would like to find out more about supporting us, check out the description for ways you can help us. Continue bringing the past alive. The nearer the river, the nearer to hell. It was a strong word, and the big chest from which it issued held more of the same sort. A tall worker, carpenter apparently, hurrying on with his box of tools and talking as he went with a companion half his size, but with quite his power of expression, interjecting strange German oaths as he listened to the story poured out to him. With that story, we have at present nothing to do, but the first words lingered, and they linger still as the summary of such life as is lived by many workers on East and West sides alike. The professional political economist of the old school, the school to which all but a handful belong, takes refuge in the census returns as the one reply to any arrangement of the present. Blind as a bat to any figures save his own, he answers all complaint with the formula, in 1860, the property of this country, equally divided, would have given every man, woman, and child $514 each. In 1870, the share would have been $624. In 1880, $814. In 1886, returns are not in, but $900 and more would be the division per capita. What madness to talk of suffering when this flood of wealth pours through the land. Admitting that the lowest class suffer, it is chiefly crime, drunkenness, etc., that bring suffering. The majority are perfectly comfortable. Having read this statement in many letters and heard it in interviews as well, it seems plain that the conviction embodied in both has fastened itself upon the portion of the public whose thinking is done for them, and who range themselves by choice with that order who would not be convinced, even though one rose from the dead. The majority are perfectly comfortable. Let us see how comfortable. I first turn to the pair, a mother and daughter. Here, as in so many cases, there had been better days, and when these suddenly ended, a period of bewildered helplessness, in which the widow felt that respectability like hers must know no compromise, and that any step that would involve her being talked about was a step toward destruction. She must live on a decent street, in a house where she need not be ashamed to have the relations come. And she did, till brought face to face with the fact that there were no more dollars to spend upon respectability, and that her quarters must hereafter conform to her earnings. She had been a dweller in that curious triangle, the remnant of Greenwich Village, the stronghold still of old New York, and she went at once to a region as unfamiliar to her conservative feet as Baxter or Hester, or any other street given over to evil. Far over toward the North River, the Hudson River, in the first floor of a great tenement house inhabited by Irish chiefly, she took 2 rooms, one a mere closet where the bed could stand, bestowed in them such furniture as remained, and at 50, with no clue left that any friend could trace, began the fight for bread. It might have been better to go to the country, she said, but you see I wasn't used to the country, and then any work I could get to do was right here. I'd always liked to sew, and so had Emmeline, and we found we could get regular work on children's suits with skirts and such things in the dull seasons. It was good pay, and we were comfortable till prices began to fall. We made $15 a week sometimes, and could have got ahead if it hadn't been for a little debt of my husband's that I wanted to pay, for we'd never owed anybody a penny, and I couldn't let even that debt stand against his name. But when it was paid, somehow I came down with rheumatic fever, and I've never got back my full strength yet, and the prices kept going down. Emmy is an expert. I never knew her make a mistake, but working 12 and 14 hours a day, and it's most often 14, the most she has made for more than a year and a half is 85 cents a day, and on that we've managed. I suppose we couldn't if I ever went out, but I've had no shoes in 2 years. I patch the ones I got then with one of my husband's old coats and keep along, but we never get ahead enough for me to have shoes. And Emmy, too, and she's the one that has to go out. How do we live? It's all in this little book. It's foolish to put it down, and yet I always somehow like to see how the money went, even when I had plenty, and it's second nature to put down every cent. Take last month. It had 27 working days, $22.95. Out of that, we took first the $10 for rent. I've been here 11 years, and they've raised $1 on me twice. That leaves $12.95 for provisions and coal and light and clothes. 'Tisn't much for 2 people, is it? You wouldn't think it could be done, would you? Well, it is, and here's the expense for 1 week for what we eat. This week was an expensive one, for I got a pound of butter at once, but it will last into next week, and we had to have the scissors sharpened. That was 5 cents. There would have been 5 cents for wood, but you see they're building down the street, and one of the boys upstairs brought me a basket full of bits. You see there's no meat. We like it, but we only get a bit for Sundays, sometimes. Emmy never wants much. Running a machine all day seems to take your appetite. But she likes clams. You see, we had them twice, and I happened to read in the paper a good while ago that you could make soup of the water the cabbage was boiled in. A quart of the water and a cup of milk and a bit of butter and some flour to thicken. You wouldn't think it could be good, but it is, and it goes a good way. Clams were often used to make clam chowder soups, clams being plentiful in the northeastern United States. It could also be made with salt pork, if affordable, diced potatoes and onions. It was originally thickened during cooking with crackers or stale bread instead of milk. The coal ought not to be in with the food, ought it? Unless it stays because I have to use it cooking. We oughtn't to spend so much on food, but I can't seem to make it less. Really, when you take out the coal and oil and the paper, and we do want to see a paper sometimes, it's only $1.62 for us both, 81 cents apiece, almost 12 cents a day, but I can't well seem to make it less. I call it 12 cents a day apiece. For the month that makes $7.44, and so you see there's $5.51 left. Then there are Emmy's car fares when she goes out, for sometimes she works downtown and only evenings at home. Last month it was 60 cents a week, $2.70 for the month, and so there was just $2.81 left, and $1.50 of that went for shoes for Emmy. The month before, my hands weren't so stiff and I helped her a good deal, so we earned $26.70, and she got 2 remnants for $1.80 at Eric's, and I made her a dress that looks very well. But she's nothing but patchwork underneath, and I'm the same, only worse. The coal is the trouble. By the scuttle it costs so much, and I tried to get ahead and have 1/4 of a ton at once, for there are places here to keep coal, but I never can. If it weren't for Emmy's missing me, it would be better for me to die, for I'm no use, you see, and times get no better, but worse. But I can't, and we must get along somehow. Lord help us all. How could 12 cents worth of coal do a week's cooking? It couldn't. It didn't. I've a little oil stove that just boils the kettle, and tea and bread and butter are what we have mostly. A gallon of oil goes a long way, and I can cook small things over it too. The washing takes coal, and you see I must have soap and all that. I don't see how we could spend less. I've learned to manage even with what we get now, but there's a woman next door that I know better than anybody in this house, for here it always seemed to me best to keep quite to myself for many reasons. But I'm always hoping for a change and a chance for Emmy. But this woman is a nice German woman that fell on the ice and sprained her ankle last winter, and we saw to her well as we could till she got better. She won't mind telling how she manages, but she's in the top of the house. She's a widow, and everybody dead belonging to her. The house was a grade below the last in cleanliness, and children swarmed on stairs and in the hall. Up to the 4th floor back, a 10-feet square room with 1 window, where, in spite of a defective sink in the hall, the odour from which seemed to penetrate and saturate everything. Spotless cleanliness was the expression of every inch of space. "Why not?" the old woman said when she understood my desire. "I tells you mine and more, too, for down the stairs I buy every day for the girl that is sick and goes out no more. If I were quick as a girl I could save much, but I have 65 year. How shall I be quick? I earn 45, 50 cents sometime, but 45 for day's work when I go as I can. And so for week that is $2.70. I can get $10 a month, sometimes $12, and I pays $3 for this room. To eat I will buy tea and our bread. Rye, for that is stronger as your fine wheat. Tea is American, but I will not get beer any more, since I see how women drinks it, and de kinder, and it not like our beer, but more tipsy. So I makes tea, and the cheese and the wurst is all not so much. It is the coal that is most. That I will eat costs not so more as 50 cent, sometimes 60, but I eat not ever all I could, for I must be warm a little, and there is light, and to wash, and some shoes. It is bad to be big as I, for shoes not last, but a loaf of bread, 5 cents, do all day, and some in next, and cheese a pound is 10, if I have, and wurst is 15, for sometime is best, and a pound stay a week if I not greedy. Tea will be 30 cents, but is good a month, and sugar a pound, 2 pounds sometime, but butter no, and milk a cent for Sunday. So I live, and I beg not. Can I more? I thank the good God only that there is no more Hans or Lisa, or any to be hungry with me. It is good they go. And you buy for someone else? Oh, ja, but she will die soon and care not. It is the kinder that care. 2, 1 6 and 1 8, and cannot earn. She sew all day on machine. It is baby's cloaks, so bright and nice. In 2 days she will make 3, for see, there is 2 linings and cape, and cuff is all scallop, and she must stitch first and then bind and hem. All is hem, all over inside. So nice, and she makes them so nice. But $8 a dozen is all, and it is a week for 9, and so she set not more as $5, because she is sick, and must stop. And there is the grandfather that is old, and the kinder and she all must live. Rent is $5.50, that I know, and I pay for her this week $1.60, for bread and tea and potatoes and some milk, and molasses for the kinder on bread, and butter a little, and milk, but not meat. It is the grandfather eat too much. But how shall one help it? The rest is clothes for all, but there is no shoes for the kinder, and I see not if there will be shoes. How shall it be? One after another, the cases on the west side gave in their testimony. Save in the first one there were no formal accounts, but a little thinking brought out the items. For many baker's bread, tea, sugar, a little milk and butter, and a bit of meat once or twice a week, the average cost of food per head for the majority of cases being 90 cents per week. All coal was bought by the scuttle, a scuttle of medium size counting as 12 cents worth, thus much more than doubling the cost per ton. In the same way, wood by the bundle and oil by the quart gave the utmost margin of profit to the seller, and the same fact applied to all provisions sold. In no case save the one first mentioned, where the motlier had learned that cabbage water can form the basis of a nourishing and very palatable soup, was there the faintest gleam of understanding that the same amount of money could furnish a more varied, more savoury, and more nourishing regimen. "Beans," said one indignant soul. "What time have I to think of beans, or what money to buy coal to cook 'em? What you'd want if you sat over a machine 14 hours a day would be tea like lye to put a backbone in you. That's why we have tea always in the pot, and it don't make much odds what's with it. A slice of bread is about all. Once in a while you get raging, tearing hungry. Seems as if you'd swallow a teapot or anything handy to fill up like, but that ain't often. Lucky for us. If you all clubbed together, couldn't one cook for you? Make good soup and oatmeal and things that are nourishing? You would be stronger then." "Stronger for what? More hours at the machine? More grinding your own flesh and bones into flour for them that's over us, ma'am? It's easy to see you mean well, and I won't say but what you know more than some that comes around what you're talking about. Club we might. I'm not denying it could be done, if there was time. But who of us has the time, even if she'd the will? I was never much hand for cooking. We'd our tea and bread and a good bit of fried beef or pork, maybe, when my husband was alive and at work. He cared naught for fancy things like beans and such. It's the tea that keeps you up, and as long as I can get that, I'll not bother about beans." In the same house, an old Swiss woman, who had fallen from her first estate as lady's maid through one grade and another of service, was ending her days on a wage of $2 per week, earned in a suspender factory, where she sewed on buckles. In her case, marriage with a drinking husband had eaten up both her savings and her earnings, and age now prevented her taking up household service, which she ranked as most comfortable and most profitable. But she had been taught while almost a child to cook, and though her expenditure for food was a little below $1 per week, the savoury smell from a saucepan on her tiny stove showed that she had something more nearly like nourishment than her neighbours. "I try sometimes to teach," she said. "I give some of my soup, and they eat it and say it is good, but they cannot stop to do so much that is fuss. All this in the saucepan is 7 cents. 3 cents for bones and some bits the kind butcher throw in, and the rest vegetable and barley. But it makes me 2 days. I have lentils, too, yes, and beans, and plenty things to flavour. And I buy rye bread and coffee for Sunday. Never tea, oh no, tea is so wicked. It make hand shake, and head fly all round. Good soup is best, and more when one can. Vegetable is many and salad, and when I make more dollar I buy some egg, but not tea. Not big loaf of white bread that swell and swell inside, and when it is gone leave one all so empty. I would teach many, but they like it not. They want only the tea, always the tea." The tea and the sewing machine are naturally inseparable allies, and so long as the sewing women must work 14 hours daily, they will remain so. The rank fluid retarding digestion, and thus proving as friendly an aid as the bone, which the half-fed peasant demands in his potato. For the west side, the story was quite plain, but for such returns as the east has to offer, there is still room for further detail.